So welcome back to the Jazzy Diaries. We're going to do something a bit different today. People have asked lots of questions and I just thought it'd be easier if I actually come on here, sit with my trusted companion and answer some of the questions.
So first question, when did you first lay your eyes on the house and what drew you to it?
So first saw the house about 6 years ago. So at this point I just got Butler's Lodge, which is the holiday cottage next door. They're on the same driveway. So I'd be driving past Duncombe House all the time and constantly being like, oh wow, look at that, and oh my god, that's amazing. And then of course at this time I also met Jack, so kind of was like, oh, look at how amazing is this house, and kind of brought him in that way. And luckily I found him who was as obsessed with it as I was. And I mean, it just, what drew me in is just it's beautiful design. It's really traditional English estate house. It's got the most amazing kind of gables, but it also just looked completely kind of wild and magical. It was a bit like something off the Secret Garden, and I was just so excited to kind of get in there. And I also started a Pinterest board at the same time, so I'd spend my evenings being like, oh, that would look good there, and I wonder what that would look like. But also at this point I hadn't seen the inside, so I was kind of like, I wonder what it's like inside, I wonder if there's this, I wonder if there's that. So
Who lived in the house previously and when did they move out?
So it was last lived in by the lady who bought it off, and she moved out about 3 years ago. She is in her 90s and she's brilliant. She decided she wanted to downsize and have something a bit smaller and more manageable, which totally makes sense. But when she did leave, she left a lot of things in the house, which then her family wanted to be able to have time to go through and sort through.
How did you manage to buy the house and when did you eventually purchase it?
So the house never went on the market. For years we said to the owner, the previous owner, if you ever think about selling it, just let us know. And we knew her, she was a family friend of ours, and obviously I had Butler's Lodge next door, so we'd kind of be in contact about a few different bits and bobs, and we basically just pestered her until she eventually said, right, this summer I'm going to sell it, and start the process really. So that whole thing, probably from asking her if she ever wants to sell it, then let us know, it probably took us the best part of 5 years to actually getting the keys, and we got the keys the first week of May last year, so it's just been a year.
How long did it take you to clear all of the stuff up the house?
A few months, but what I will say is the previous owner, she took 80% of what was there. There was huge dressers and dining room tables, and she took so much, and she actually had a local auction house come and collect a lot of the furniture and put it into the auctions. And they actually at the same time they took out the bird bath out of the garden, which is a real shame because there's now a hole where it was, so we will be replacing that at some point. But yeah, so she took 80% of the stuff, and then it got to the point where, you know, she was trying to clear it out and she had a lot on her plate, and we just said, look, just leave what you don't want, we will go through it. If we find anything that we think is still, you know, is yours, or photographs or anything like that, we'll put together a kind of box inside. But I'd say in total probably the first 2, maybe 3 months were just, because also it was stuff that we wanted to go through, because it was all kind of boxes of photos and things like that, or stuff from like the house way back when, so we really wanted to take our time and not rush it. It wasn't the kind of thing where we just got people in. Me and Jack wanted to do it ourselves and take our time doing it and pick out what can be saved and what we could put in the shipping container. So yeah, I'd say it took about 3 months.
When did it last flood and what measures have you taken to prevent it from flooding again in the future?
So the first flood happened about 18 months before we bought it, and it was a burst water pipe in the ceiling above one of the back bedrooms. It happened during the winter because the previous owners, they were having the heating on, you know, they were doing what they could to keep the house warm, and something must have broken down or happened, or the boiler stopped. Anyway, we had a really cold snap. The pipe burst in the ceiling, and the water, mains pressure water, coming through the ceiling of the entire house. Now obviously no one was living there at the time, so nobody actually knew about the leak for a few weeks until the owner went and saw, and the house had a good few inches of water in it, and obviously all the furniture, all the everything was soaking wet. So it was it must have been a nightmare that day when she opened the door. So that was the first leak. The previous owner sorted it out, got a plumber in, did what she could, and then she left the kitchen tap with a slight drip on it so it didn't freeze again. Anyway, when the auctioneers came to go through the house, they mistakenly tightened up the tap, as you would do. They saw a dripping tap and thought they were doing a favour, tightened up the tap, 6 weeks later, 6 weeks later, it happens again. So it had 2 floods, which is what really brought down a lot of the plaster, a lot of the wallpaper. It ruined a lot of the floors and a lot of the woodwork. So our first priority when we got the keys was to rip out all the pipework. It was all a bit of a mess anyway, where it had been put in like the 80s. There was nothing original and it couldn't be trusted anymore. So we knew we were going to be going into winter, and we knew we were having all the radiators restored, so we knew it'd be completely repiped. So we removed any of the pipework, removed the old boiler, and just started afresh. So we've never actually been in the house with any heating, and we did the exact same with the electrics, because a lot of it couldn't be trusted. And the lady who lived there had over the years created her own system where she'd put sellotape over some of the light switches with just no on it to be like not safe to use. So I think with a leak and the dodgy electrics, we just said, right, let's just be safe about it and just go back to basics.
When did you start the Instagram account, and how long was it until you started to realise it was becoming so popular?
So I started the Instagram account within about a month after we bought the house. We had lots of friends and family who were visiting, and then I was constantly finding myself sending photos at the end of the day, and everyone was, what's happening now? And I was just kind of spending my entire time on my phone, and friends of mine were like, you've got to start an Instagram account for this. And I was like, oh, I don't know, this is another job, I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm not very good at anything like that, I'm not good at taking photos. And anyway, eventually one of my friends was like, you're doing it, this is what you should call it, and set it up. So we set it up like that, and actually the previous owner was like, are you going to start an Instagram account for it? And I said I would, and I was like, but I'm just going to keep it private. So initially it was literally private for just friends and family, because I felt like there's no pressure then to do anything or commit to it. And then yeah, friends and family were loving it, and other people were like, oh, can my friend who doesn't know you but she's my friend, can she follow? And then in the end I was like, let's just open it up. And then it's just kind of gone from there, really.
What made you start with Jack's voiceovers? How did that come around?
So I tried to do the first voiceover, which was my own voice, and I just cringed so badly and couldn't listen to it. And I was like, oh, it's not for me, I can't do it. And then Jack was sat there laughing at me. And from day one, he's been like, happy if you do an Instagram account, but I don't want to be all over it. He doesn't have any social media himself. He doesn't see any social media accounts. He has nothing. So he was quite unaware of what I was trying to do. And anyway, I showed him a few like other people's. He was like, let me do it. So he grabbed the camera, did a voiceover, and of course the whole thing was kind of a mockery. And that's just kind of how it started, really. And then I was like, right, let's post it, see how it goes. At this point, you know, we had 100 followers that were friends, and it's kind of just gone from there.
What was your biggest jump in followers? Like, when did you start to notice that your followers were going from just kind of friends and family to a much bigger audience?
We went from kind of the first week being friends and family to about 30,000 within the first couple of weeks, I'd say.
Wow.
And then it's a weird thing, you kind of like wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my god, okay, what happens now? And then we went from probably about 80,000 to about 300,000 in the space of a day. And that was like, oh my god, and it just wasn't stopping, and it was just gaining this momentum, and that was pretty surreal.
Why was the house full of so much stuff?
It was just generations of collecting things. You know, there's been a few generations that had lived there up until recently, and I think what happened as well is that they had different family members living there at some point. They had like their great uncle, and then it was inherited by the next generation. I think when every generation went in, they just left stuff and furniture. You know, it's like family heirlooms. You never want to be the one who makes decisions. So what you do is you just put it in a different outbuilding, where you put it in your garage, or you put it in a different room to forget about it. You think, oh, I'm not really sure I like it, but I'll decide on that later. So I think it was, best part of 100 years of doing that. And like I said, there was so much stuff in there. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of amazing, really interesting things, but there's also a lot of crap, a lot of rubbish, but just a lot of like, you know, Christmas cards have been saved for years, and magazines, and all of that's so interesting to see, but it's not like the place was brimming with antiques that they walked out of. And like I said, we literally begged the owner in the end to be like, look, just, we'll sort it out. And I think we were filling a skip a day for the first week, because a lot of it, remember, was wet. So it was all wet and full of mould, and there was all kind of stuffed toys full of mould. And I think it's really overwhelming when it's your family home and your family stuff to not take everything. And she took 80% of it. She was filling cars full of stuff and photographs, and also trying to dry it out. So she had a hell of a job the other side doing it. So yeah, that's why it got to that point. But I think it was just, years and years of kind of history and family, and no one wants to be the one who throws it away. I did try and have Quincy here to join me, as lots of people have been asking for more Quincy content. She did sit here for a bit, and then obviously she got a bit warm, so she's gone. But I will try and bring her more in. I hope you liked the question and answers today. Please let us know if there's any more questions you want answering. We are in a few weeks going to be doing a video just Q&A. I can answer any question you want, so feel free to let me know.